Life is full of big moments of change and transformation where we have to pivot on our path.
Those moments come with a wide variety of emotions, from fear and anxiety to joy and relief.
I'm Kelly Koopmans.
And I'm Mary Nam, and this is Hard Turn.
Hi, Kelly.
Well, hello, Mary.
Good to see you on this lovely fall day.
You know, it is fall. You were calling out my LL Bean. I know it's quilted.
No, I love
means
it.
We're
It looks
officially
super cozy. Super cozy.
It is
and I
that
love
time of
LL
year.
Bean. I'm a big fan.
Well-
LL Bean. What's the other one? Oh, gosh. Oh, my gosh.
All of
Land's
them?
End.
Okay. I support all of this.
All the East Coast cozy, brands.
We like it all.
Yeah.
Because we are entering spooky season.
And you're loving it.
I am loving it. I'm telling you. We had those Halloween decorations up. I wish it could say it was October 1st, but
Since when?
well, I'm not going to lie to our wonderful viewers or to you. It was up in the month of September.
That's not bad.
Really?
I mean, September's still
September
September's
30th?
fall. Yeah, September's fall.
Okay.
It was
September's
good.
fall,
You
back
got-
to school.
You're ready to go.
I do love a change of season.
Have you already had your pumpkin spice latte?
Yes. I had the pumpkin spice latte when it was hot, like
okay.
early
Yeah,
September.
yeah, okay.
So I had the iced version, and then I slowly moved to the warm version.
I haven't had it yet.
Hey, speaking of school,
We've got a good guest today.
we have a great guest with us today who happens to be an educator. And so we talk a little bit about how his story, his son's story, plays into education here locally. But we are speaking with Nicholas Ford. He is the superintendent of Catholic schools, and he is the father, along with his wonderful partner, Rachel, to 3 kiddos. They're
busy.
Yes, very busy. Their middle child, Aloysius, or Aloe, as you will hear us call him, is 6. And 5 days after he was born, he was diagnosed with Down syndrome. And so that's kind of the hard turn we're focusing on here when we are talking to Nicholas and some of the unforeseen challenges and unforeseen blessings that came along with his family's journey.
Nicholas describes it in such a wonderful way, what this adventure was like for him and his family. And I hope you guys enjoy the interview.
Nicholas, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome to the podcast
Yes,
room. We're
our very
thrilled to have
fancy
you.
studio.
Yeah, it's amazing to be here. It's very quiet in here.
Yeah, that's amazing how that works.
Yeah.
I think this is great to have you here. I think also for this topic, all of us are parents in this room.
Yep.
And I think that a lot of our viewers also can just know that like all families are beautiful in all different shapes and sizes. And I think that it'll just resonate with a lot of people. So excited to chat with you.
Same. Yeah,
Yeah.
I hope so.
Can you tell us about the hard turn in your family's, what you guys experienced? We talked about becoming parents, the excitement, the nervousness, the anticipation, the preparation. All of it is just such a big time. Tell us your story.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think becoming parents for the first time can be a hard turn in anybody's life. We had an older son, Calogero, and then I think our hard turn, though, in particular, was probably with the birth of our second child, Aloysius. Alo was born on Valentine's Day in 2019, and up until his birth, we were expecting kind of, Calo 2.0 in some ways, and really had no indications that anything was different. And his early days maybe a little bit different. And 4 days after he was born, we were with our pediatrician who knew our older son and knew Alo and looked at him and just said, I think he might have Down syndrome. And that ended up being the case. So that for us was a bit of a shift in what we were expecting with that second child. My wife and I were a lot of support in our community, but someone had shared this kind of an analogy for us, and it was kind of our welcome to Holland moment where we'd been preparing for travel to, the idea is you're going to prepare for a trip to Italy. You've been learning the language. You're ready to go. You've got your map out, and you get off the plane, and you're not in Italy. You're in a different country, and it's an equal opportunity. It's a great experience, but you're just not prepared for it.
So let's go back to that first moment where it's day 4, I think you said, where the pediatrician is like, I think this is Down syndrome. What are the first things going through your mind?
I think it was this sense of like not knowing what to do next and what does that mean for us and for his future, for our future, for his older brother. There's just a lot of unknowns, and the idea that I think we felt confident in some ways that we'd done this once before and we're there, and then all of a sudden it was going back to square one. It felt like just a lot of uncertainty.
You've mentioned having a lot of support, which is key, of course, to raising any child. Was there fear also in there of the unknown?
Yeah, I think it is. It is fearful. It is not knowing what is going to be there. And personally, I had not really had much interaction with an individual with Down syndrome, either in my family or in kind of our close friend network. So there was just a known of what does life look like, and do you parent differently? Is it the same? Is what's going to be harder? What's going to be easier? Is anything going to be easier?
The aspect of your story that really made a mark on me was learning this after the fact. Most parents find out during the pregnancy. There's time to prepare. There's months of doctor's visits. There's extra attention. And you guys had no idea until the baby has already arrived. That moment must have been shocking in so many ways.
It is. And I think Rachel and I look back on it and think, was it better to find out like we did, or would we have prepared, differently had we known? We were always people who like to be surprised. We never knew the gender of our baby as they were born. And really, as, Aloe was kind of, as we're going to all the appointments leading up to his birth, we never had any indicators. It is this surprise, though. You get off, and there hasn't been any time to compress. So I think adding a second child to a family is already a bit of a leapfrog moment. But then doing that on top of trying to pick up some new books and, new reading and just this overwhelm of knowing, new appointments, different than what we had for our oldest. So you didn't get that, maybe that 6-month, roundup where you're saying, hey, how do you come to terms with kind of what a new reality is going to be?
Yeah. So Aloe is 6 now.
Yes.
So now you had some time from that initial moment where you were, what lies ahead? What does this look like? And now you've gone through, 6 years of that. What have you learned personally, or what kind of advice would you have for other parents who are maybe back at that square one?
I think the thing that we've learned is that we are blessed that we've had this opportunity to, be in Holland. I mean, there's just been this, to go back to that. But I think there's just this sense that things happen in time and that people are there and there's a patience in the process, and that there's the same unfamiliarity you have when you're a parent for the first time is there, and it's been a blessing. I think we look at our family as blessed. We wouldn't have it any other way with Aloe and with his 2 siblings, Calla, who's older, and Philomena. It's just taking it in, a day at a time.
Since Aloe's birth, you've added to the family another baby. Aloe is now the middle child. How would you describe Aloe? What's his personality like?
Aloe is probably the friendliest person I know. He is happy. He is emotional, though. He will tell you when he's upset. But he's just full of joy, exuberance. He's got this warm personality and ability to kind of think and work hard. I think that's probably the thing I admire most about him is his perseverance. I mean, he's just a worker.
Yeah. I think part of when you go to these hard turns in life, they kind of open your eyes to this whole other world that maybe you didn't know that you would be wandering into. You yourself, you're the superintendent of Catholic schools, you're an educator, and you've come with these views of inclusion and how that could improve. Maybe talk to us a little bit about, as a parent of someone who is looking for more inclusion in schools, where were you finding that there was opportunity for that? And have you found sort of a calling in that since having Aloe join your family?
Yeah. It's certainly given a new purpose to my work as an educator, as superintendent, and thinking about how we think about inclusion and belonging in our schools, and how do we serve more learners, how do we serve all learners. it's been something that I've tried to, just be open with, is to say, recognize, we have a platform that we can use to kind of speak about what it's like. But I think the biggest thing is knowing that our schools can work with parents and understanding what their expectations are, and that there's a balance there. Aloe certainly needs a little bit more support than probably your typical child, and there's so much he can do that really doesn't extend much beyond what the typical classroom experience is. And so it's knowing how do we pair on that. And we've tried to be vocal in our support for thinking about how do our Catholic schools in particular kind of grow that opportunity to foster inclusion, and really to think about the opportunity for him to engage with neurotypical peers and for them to engage with Aloysius. People ask us, how do you treat Aloe? How do you treat him differently? And I think the best piece of advice that we've received is, if you want to learn how to treat someone who has Down syndrome, watch their siblings. Don't pay attention to the parents. It's really the siblings know no difference. I mean, for them, he's Aloe, and that's who they've known him to be. And so they're rough and tumble. They love each other. They compete. They wrestle. They get upset. But they're cheerleaders together. And that's, I think, part of what we're trying to bring in our schools, is to say, how do you learn from that?
And what does that look like? Like, what opportunities do you see for that to play out in a school setting? Or what would you like to see maybe down the road?
Yeah, I think the thing that we're really trying to focus on is how we create capacity in our schools, and thinking about even basic principles around, we talk about universal design, and thinking about what are the opportunities in a classroom that if we just change one practice, certainly serves a student like Aloe, but also benefits the rest of the class as well. And so we spend a lot of our efforts when we think about our own professional development around that in schools. And I think it's letting schools know that there's not a wrong way to do this. Mm-hmm. And I think similar to maybe a parent's hesitancy of like, gosh, am I going to do this right? It's to say, part of this is just being courageous and knowing how you work with the parent to say, we're going to walk this with you. We're going to probably make some bumps along the way, but we're taking that chance. And I think that's our hope, is that schools see that as an opportunity and an opportunity to say yes.
I love your analogy about arriving in Holland, because it's so easy to understand what you mean when you word it that way. You've been getting ready to go to Italy, and you get off the plane and you're in a wholly different country. Can you tell us about resilience, what that word has meant to you, and also for your wife, Rachel, resilience in a marriage as a father? What has that looked like?
Yeah. I think about resilience, and I think certainly the two people who capture it are Aloe and Rachel. I think Aloe is blessed to have a mom who is as hard of an advocate as Rachel is, and what she does day in and day out. And part of this is understanding how the system and kind of the world works for a person like Aloysius, and just what it takes to advocate on his behalf to ensure he gets the services. But Aloe in particular, just the digging in and the leaning into his therapies. The first time we went for testing, because they'll test him to see what services he qualifies for, and he was testing within 1.5 standard deviations of the mean, which is kind of the cutoff. And so they said, well, he doesn't qualify for services. So part of that is being able to advocate to say, this is not a diagnosis he's going to grow out of. These are the supports, but he works so hard at all of his therapies that he actually oftentimes falls within that. And so part of it's been his resilience in saying, hey, I want to keep on, I want to be as fast, as clever, as kind, as rough and tumble as my brother. I want to stay just as far ahead as my sister. And then for us as parents, to be the resilience to continue to work and to advocate on a daily basis for his experience and for kids like him. I think Rachel and I are both educators. We have a familiarity with the system, and yet we recognize there's extra appointments, there's extra calls with sometimes insurance, sometimes with schools, to make sure that he's getting the support and services that he needs to thrive. And that really, hopefully, we're doing that to create a pathway for other families, because it really is, I think, our responsibility together as a community to bring these kids along.
Have you found more community in other families with children with Down syndrome?
We've been blessed by that. We had people reach out right off the bat, and people connected us with friends of theirs who had children with Down syndrome. And then when we live in Tacoma, in Pierce County, Kitsap has this group, 321 Buddy. It's a great organization for families with children with Down syndrome. That network has been great. And people are in different points along their own journey. And the spectrum of kids with Down syndrome is wide. There's, they all have different, abilities and strengths and challenges. But that community coming together has been a real gift for our families, just to see families like ours who this was not expected, right? No one expects that necessarily, and yet how do we walk it together?
You talk about expectations. If you could go back 6 years, right after Ella was born and learning of this, to now, would you say that your fears and concerns then ended up being about the same things, or were you completely off? That, looking back, your initial big concerns, did they line up to what you were afraid they might be, or how did those 6 years?
That's a great question.
That is a great question.
Oh, thank you.
That is.
Think about that, and
Yeah.
But I'm very curious about that, because that's whether or not it's a child with Down syndrome, sudden diagnosis, anything in life. When we think about it, our initial moment is often fear, and you have these specific fears. I'm worried about this, this, and this, and then as you move through those years, you think back, oh, that actually wasn't the worst part. It was this, or this actually ended up going better than I thought. Were there any specific moments?
I think so. I'd say there's two parts. I think one was around his medical fragility and wondering, what was that going to look like when he was born? He had a heart defect that needed frequent monitoring by cardiologists. He had a surgery when he was just shy of a year old because it just needed to be done. And then we went to the cardiologist for the follow-up, and they're like, "All right, we'll see you in 5 years." And we're like, "I'm sorry, what?" So there was that part to say, "Gosh, that was this little thing. It's fixed. His resilience is there." I think one of the things that we probably are scared about, and it's the unpredictability, and you want your children to thrive, and we want him to, same way we want his brother and sister to be, contributing members of their communities. It's just what the future looks like when we're not there to advocate on his behalf on every single day. It's just, what does that look like for him in the world and to navigate it as a person? So that was probably more of an acute fear 6 years ago. I think today we see the way that his community rallies around him, and the way that by framing that up with great friends, and we've got great friends. And we were at cross country this past week, and he was running, and God bless him, he's our kid who likes cross country probably the best. And he plugs away at it, but he had his buddies, all four of them came back at the end of the race and ran alongside him for the last quarter of a mile that they were running, just to have that solidarity. And I think that's the part of our fear that I think has subsided, is this recognition that he is going to keep working hard. That's part of who he is, and he's going to be surrounded by people who love him, who are going to buoy him up and be his advocates and his cheerleaders, be people who challenge him to push.
What I love about being a parent is sometimes it humbles me how much as my kids are looking up to me to teach them all about the great grand world, is how much I find that in those little moments that I can learn from them. What for you maybe stands out as something where you're looking at Aloe and you're like, dude, you've taught me something awesome.
Yeah, I think with Aloysius, when we look at him, it's how he sees the world and embraces it with this enthusiasm and this absolute presence to the moment in terms of his, way he reacts to things and the excitement he has and what he embraces. That I don't think for Aloysius, he dwells very much on what's coming down the pike and where's he been. Now, I don't think that's atypical for the typical 6-year-old. And I think, our oldest, I probably would say, I think he's probably also kind of in the moment. But there's an absolute focus of where am I right now, and that's where his attention is. When he's speaking, that's the focal point. And I think that's been a welcome lesson for me especially. It's just that reminder to be with the people that we're with at that time.
Yeah, live in the moment, be in the present. There's a reason why they say that on all those cards, right? All those Hallmark cards.
Yeah.
Before we let you go, we have to ask you, what advice, Nicholas, do you have for other families who may be where you were 6 years ago, just found out about this diagnosis, they're very concerned and unsure of what to expect?
think to go back to the original analogy, Holland's a great place to be. It might not have been what you were preparing for, and yet I think to be able to throw yourself wholeheartedly into learning the language, to understanding what are the sights to see, what are the moments to appreciate. And at the end of the day, this is still about a journey. It's still an opportunity for something new, and to take yourself out of that comfort zone and be okay with the fact that you don't know. Because I think in that place of uncertainty, it's sometimes where we find the greatest consolation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Nicholas, thank you so much for joining
Thank
us and
you.
sharing us your family story, and excited to hear more about how Alo's doing in this big, long journey ahead.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both for having me. I appreciated the time.
Yeah.
We'd like to thank Nicholas for that wonderful interview and eye-opening in so many ways.
I think that you touched on one thing there where you were, I'm not sure if it was included while we were rolling, but the opening our eyes to the spectrum
Yeah.
of Down syndrome. And he said it was something that they were actively learning about. And of course it makes so much
Perfect
sense.
Yes.
So that was something that stuck with me. Of course, there's always a range, and everyone's experience is different, and never assume that it's this cookie cutter way
Right.
that you see it played out.
Sure, absolutely. I'm still thinking about the shock factor, and I think it's just, it stands out to me because when I think about when we had our boys, been open about infertility, doing IVF, so it was so, like, we were monitoring every little thing and testing for this and testing for that, and so I can't imagine not having known and because of not knowing, being unable to prepare. That part must have been so difficult.
I remember we did all the blood tests for each kid. And sometimes I'd run into a friend and I'd be like, oh, yeah, it's 10 weeks, so I can now do the blood test. And did you guys do that? And they're like, no, we're just going to kind of wait and see what happens and what will be.
Some
will
people
be.
can do that.
They can.
I don't think we're.
I think that you and I were even joking that, like, if there is an email in my inbox
Yeah.
that has the gender or important information, I was like, oh, I know I'm going to be peeking.
Yes.
And I'll have to confess that I've been peeking.
But man, I loved his Holland analogy.
Isn't that great?
I hadn't heard that one before.
I hadn't either.
Yeah.
But how wonderful to have this vision of where you're going to go on a vacation. You've packed your bag and learned the language, and voila, you've found yourself in Amsterdam.
Crazy. Just crazy.
I think that it's something that we can apply to a lot of things in life when we look at expectation, and maybe some of the greatest gifts lie in traveling that road you didn't know that you were going to go down.
When he talks about how his concern was how other kids would treat Alo, when and if they're not there to advocate for him, that's something that all parents can understand. And his message about, if you want to know how to be, just look at how his brother and sister are with him. I don't know why that was such a light bulb moment for me, but it was like, duh.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So
Right?
when you really
Siblings
want to
that love him, yes.
when you really want to get to your son. When I want River to do what I want, how would Riley talk to him?
Sometimes, though, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know if that's the best thing, but the heart of what he's saying, yes, absolutely.
And living
Understand.
in the moment,
Yeah.
which is what Alo has taught him to be able to do. But I hope what resonates with a lot of people with this episode, it's not just specific to Down syndrome or maybe even necessarily anything different with a baby that's born, but any challenge that a parent anticipates for their child. And it can be very easy to try and project all the way down the line of what it's going to do.
All the scenarios that you play out, right?
All the scenarios
You want to
you
cover
play.
all the bases.
Yeah. And by then, I think that you even gave me a really good piece of advice once where it was like, give your kids more credit to be able to show you what they can do, and not just to fall into every bad scenario that you have created for them. You once, some wise lady once said something to the effect of that.
Yeah, I remember saying that. Do I remember practicing that?
Oh, surely you do.
No, but that's, yes. And also goes hand in hand with the whole resilience, right? Like, yes, they are our children. They're so young, but they are also their own person, their own autonomous, uniquely independent, amazing individuals. And I think what I was getting at was it's a little bit insulting to think that if you are not there, they're not going to make it.
Right.
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 You can't believe that.
What I also love about these hard turns that we cover for people and whatever the topics are is that oftentimes you have people who end up advocating for something.
Yeah.
You know, we've had past episodes with Emily Cantrell. Let's use that as an example where she was into mental health for survivors of
Yeah.
mass shootings and going to the legislature. And a lot of these people who find advocacy in things that initially are something that they have to navigate, these hard turns. And for him, what was interested is hearing maybe some of the barriers that have existed in terms of inclusion.
Yeah.
He's talking specifically about Catholic schools because that's where he's at, but finding a purpose in increasing inclusion. And maybe it's not just for kids who are neurodivergent, have them over here,
Right.
but included more with maybe neurotypical students and having the neurotypical students learn just as much as you're having someone else learn in that interaction too. So
And as a lifelong educator for a long, long time, I mean, he has seen it all play out, right, in the classrooms and schools. And so it's a very, very unique perspective that he has at work and also at home now that he is a parent.
yeah. Well, it sounds like he has the whole family rallied around each other, and these kids are all keeping each other in check as they so often do.
Gosh, 3 kids, I think under 10, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So 8-year-old, Aloysius is 6, and then a 4-year-old.
A 4-year-old
I was like,
daughter,
you
yes.
are me just 2 years in the future.
Yeah.
How's it going for you? But what a wonderful guy. So, Nicholas, thank you so much for sharing your
Yes.
story, and what a partner you have in Rachel.
She sounds incredible.
Yeah, sounds like she's
Next
really.
time we'll have to have them both.
I think
right?
You know what?
Should have said that. Yeah.
I say we have Aloe come here.
Hello.
Have all-
Part 2.
Let's have the whole
Let's
crew.
do it. Let's do it.
All right. Well, Mary, lovely seeing you as always.
Good to see you too. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Oh yes, thank you. Now that we're in sweater weather.
That's right. Bye, guys.
Bye.